Hey guys, Santola here, and we're back with another tier list video. So taking the tier list I did a few weeks ago for a pre-ALIN, just post-ban list, and we're going to make it a post-ALIN tier list. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. I'll leave it in the description. So what we're going to do here is rather than go through and rerank all the decks, I'm just going to take the best decks because I think this is the ones that are really changing around, especially because a lot of them do get new support. I'm going to leave the decent and the weak rogue absolutely not where they are. I think they're still fine. It's more about kind of their individual power level and how they function as a deck themselves, as opposed to the bigger picture. In that game, we'll talk about the big power decks and talk about how they are will feel going into the next format. We're also going to take a look at obviously all the new decks that come out post ALIN, or the ones that get really large amounts of support. So we'll start with the questionable tier 0 deck of next format, which is Malice. So Malice gets new support through Hair, which is a completely custom card, as well as they get the Ignister cards, which are very, very powerful. The big question is whether this is going to be tier 0 or tier 1. I think that the numbers for this deck will be tier 0. I think you will have to build to beat the deck to beat it. The one thing I will say though is I think it'll still be a little bit worse than Snake Eye was in this prime. When Snake Eye is winning 27 of the top 32 top cut spots. I think it was YCS Indy. I don't think we'll have quite that level of Malice dominance. The one big thing is the other decks just around here are just good decks by themselves, and so they have strategies where Malice may not be able to go second into them as well as it can. As well as the fact is, unlike Snake Eye, where there really wasn't any big tech cards that destroy the deck, Malice at least has cards that are good into it. The Chummies are very good into it. Lancey is very good into it. Still, yes, they have plays through those cards sometimes now, but there's still limitations where they do need to actually draw the plays to play through it. Plus, you can still pair those cards super well. So I think that it will be pushing the tier 0, but I don't think we'll have quite the level of dominance that Snake Eye has. And I think the version you should be playing is just the Ignister Cyverse Pile deck. Like, I don't think there's reason to play Fiendsmith cards or large amount of Bestials now. The Ignister cards are super high quality cards as well. You do not need these supplementary engines. You're just playing Malice with the Ignisters, and the deck is the best deck by a fairly large margin. Going through some of the best decks, we're going to move some of them down. So I think Blue Eyes is a lot worse than it was before. I think it was fine before, but the problem, well, I thought it was the best deck last set, but the problem is now going next format is that Veiler is basically an engine piece in this deck, and this deck wants to play a lot of fair hand traps, and the problem is that fair hand traps are just really bad versus Malice. You want to play Chummies, you want to play Lancia, or more blowout cards, and the problem is that Blue Eyes does not do well with those cards. Veil is basically an engine piece in the deck. You have to play 3 of it, and I think for just how low impact that card is in next format, I think that deck just goes down because that. Yes, the deck is good into Chummies, and to Droll and to Lancia and all those cards. So if you want to play the deck, it still is viable, but it is a bit of an uphill battle when you try and play against a deck that has a significantly higher ceiling than you do. Next up is Christian. I'm actually still going to put this in one of the best decks. I think this deck actually has a really strong engine. It does well into the Chummies and the Droll. The big problem is Lancia, but at least it's something you have to deal with only post side as opposed to game 1, hopefully. The big thing is this card deck can play a lot of blowouts. It can play some of the breakers that are better into Malice because you have a lot of tech spots and you're not really forced to play into these hand traps or hand trap awards like other decks. The other big thing with this deck is it does well into a lot of the hand traps that are played even beyond that, like Impulse, Imperm. I think it's good into especially the strong hands, as well as the fact that its end board interacts with Malice in a very good way. The big thing with Malice is you want to get the normal summon off the board quickly because otherwise the Ignister cards turn on when they make the link one, any link one. And having the trap as your first interaction is very nice because it means they have to have an extender, and that's when you can start hitting them with the Infinity or with some other interactions. And the big thing is when you have your board position is you just keep hitting the normals or the regular bodies on the board, and you never let them make a link, and then a lot of Malice's best extenders in the form of the Ignister cards just will not have a chance to function. And because it interacts like that, it's a super good way of interacting. I'm going to put this in one of the best decks. Still, I think it's the bottom of the best decks. I do not think it is by any means completely overwhelming, but I do think this is one of the better decks to try and at least take into Malice. I think the end board's good, and I think it plays in tech cards really well. The Razor Fiendsmith deck, I'm probably still going to put somewhere either top as solid or maybe just above the Christian deck. I think it's still fine. I think the problem is with a lot of Chummies running around, it could be problematic. I'm going to put it here, especially because it loses Droll as well. But the deck's still solid, still Basil Fiendsmith. It was a very good powerhouse last format, and even though Malice got a lot better, the end board of yours is still very good. If you're getting hit with normal tech cards, hand traps, the deck plays doing very well, and Detonator is still a big problem for Malice. Memento I'm going to put as the second best deck of the format. I think the big thing is that when you're playing against Malice, you want to Chummy them or Lancia them, have that lingering hand trap, and then have a large amount push through the half boards they're making, or if they're giving you something like 10 draws because people are just taking the Chummy challenge, they're full boarding through the Chummies. you want to actually be able to push through their board with the engine of your deck when you have 10 cards. And I think that's why I put Crystal high, because I think it does well. I think Memento does even better. If you're giving Memento 10 cards, they can have 10 engine cards. You're not particularly feeling good about your odds, even when you have full Malice board. The big thing with the Malice board is that it's so hard to interact with, but it doesn't actually have that many interruptions itself. Like, it's 2 banishes. You have the white binding banish from the grave, plus you have a code, plus firewall, plus the tech cards. Like, it is a lot, but it's not quite the 8 interruptions that Snake Eye had last one, because Apollo was just a generic card. And so Memento is just going to summon guy, start pushing, and it's very good at forcing these things out, and it has a very easy kill shot where once everything's gone, I'm going to summon the 5k guy. There's nothing else on my board. I'm just going to swing at everything, and you die. This deck also does very well into Droll. It's basically Droll immune. Also does very well into Chummies, although not Chummy immune. It's still very solid into it. I think it's super well positioned into the format overall, and I will put it as the second best deck. Next up, we have the White Forest deck, which I think is better than it was last time, but I'm still kind of hesitant to put it too high. The big problem with this deck is just the lack of non-engine space you have in the deck. It is a 2-card combo deck. Yes, you have 1-card combos, but you still want to be drawing those multiple engine hands. And the problem is that just doesn't work this format because you have a lot of these combo decks up here that are really degenerate. There's argument put in the best decks, but I'm just a bit skeptical of it. I think it is a bit too weak into the Chummies and to Droll, as well as the non-engine problem makes me a little bit hesitant to put it too much higher up. But I think at the top of solid decks it is reasonable. If you really enjoy the playstyle of the deck, it is by all means a very good deck to go and pick up and play. However, if it is something that you're like, well, I'm trying to figure out the best deck to the format, I don't think it's quite that power level. Next up, we have the Pure Mitsu deck, which I'm going to put at the bottom of Solid, probably above Blue Eyes. This is just hand trap version, so you're not playing any Razor cards. It's a much bigger Mitsu card or package. You're trying to rely on those. And I think the deck is fine. The end boards are a little bit lacking, to be honest, because if the nuke isn't good against the decks you're playing against, which not all of the decks are particularly afraid of getting nuked, like Memento, that's not a big problem at all. Or if they're coming in lots of waves like White Force, the deck does struggle as your main interruption. You do get on IP, you have a lot of tech cards, but I think it's just a little bit too low in power level. Even if it does play well into the tech cards of the format to justify putting it higher. The Mitsu Razor deck, on the other hand, I'm putting significantly higher because, well, you have just much more push now. You have the Razor cards to end with Detonator. Your end board is not an issue at all. I think the biggest problem with the Mitsu Razor deck is the clunkiness of the deck, and it does have a non-engine issue because you don't want to be playing uh, 18 text cards in the deck. You do want to have a bit more of a concise engine. And the problem is, unlike Memento, where I think a lot of your engine hands go super well together, all your engine pieces are complementing each other well. The Mitsu is a little bit more clunky because you have a lot more of the big guys that aren't doing much on by themselves, or there's big choke points. So you have a virtual spell you're using, it gets impulse and the game gets super awkward. So I'm going to put it below Memento for that reason. I do think these two decks, Memento and Mitsu, are still a fair bit worse than Malice, but the power level is very good and they can push really well. So that's why I'm putting them as the best two decks. Next up is Tempai. I'm going to put it a bit lower than was before, probably above Mitsu still. I think just going second into Malice is, asking for bad things to happen. Mouse plays a lot of tech cards, so you have to deal with the board plus all the tech cards you're going to have from drawing. I don't think it's a valid strategy. Just try go into Tempai, but it does, or try and go second and Tempai all the decks. But I think it is fine in the sense that it can still be a lot of the other decks up here. Mermaid, I'll probably put. I actually think this might be a better. I'll probably put around White Force, maybe a bit better than White Force. The big thing with this deck is the board's kind of awkward now. Like, I don't know what you're trying to do with it, especially when there's so many Chummies and Drolls in. You're not going to get the barrier statue as much as you were before, where you're just playing through traditional hand traps. The big thing is, though, you still have very gas hands where you can play through a lot of the traditional hand traps, as well as if you Chummy them. Malice, the full boards. Mermos is another one of those decks where it's like, okay, if you're full boarding me, I have 10 cards in hand, I'm going to be doing things. And cracking a large amount of the board. The problem is whether you can actually fully deal with all the follow-up or kill. I think Mitsu and the Memento deck both have very good ways of winning the grind game either by killing or getting into complete dominant position. Same with Krishan. The max banish on all the links after they come back is another way of them being able to outgrind Malice, as well as Cluster is a very good card where they can't banish cards in the grind. Murmur doesn't have quite that auto win con in the grind game, so I'm going to kind of put this a little bit lower. But it still is by all means a valid deck. Statue is a very good card, and it is one of the better engines to actually be able to push into the half boards or push into the full boards of Malice once they give you like 10 cards. Pure Basil, How you fallen off. I think this is worse than blue eyes. I think it's just kind of a hand trap deck. I don't think hand traps are that good right now. They're okay. But we're talking about more the unfair, lingering hand traps, as well as kind of paired with other breakers or strong pushes. I don't think Rizal does that good anymore. You have to play Takia and whatnot. It is just too weak to really use those well. And the other thing is, if people are thrusting into D-Bear, the deck just falls off. It's still Rizal. Then is still a problem. So I'm not going to put it any lower than that. But I do not think it is well positioned at all. Fire King, I'll probably put above the other hand trap piles as well as above Tempai. I'm actually put Tempai a bit lower. I think it's worse than the hand trap piles. The reason why I put this a little bit higher is because you don't really play into the chummies at all. You're basically completely immune to them. Same with Droll, um, as well as the fact that you can just play a lot of tech cards. And some of the ones that are better, like Impulse is obviously usable in this deck, which is not usable on the other ones, which can steal games from Malice. And it's just happy in these simplified game states. I'm not gonna say it's super good. Like I'm still putting it below all these decks. And as you can see, Malice is a very good deck. And so most of the decks I'm putting at the top are very engine heavy or have strong pushes when they draw engine heavy hands. And so while I think Fire King is the best of the hand trap decks, like it's better than Pure Mitsu, Blue Eyes, Razor, I still think it's the strategy it's trying to play of just hand trapping your opponent to death is not a good strategy. And so we're gonna put this at kind of the middle point between strong engine decks and the hand trap decks. Next up, we're going to go through and talk about the new decks of the format, which I think are, for a large part, can be ignored. But the one that can't be ignored is the Evil Twin deck, which I unfortunately do not rate that high. It is Evil Twin Fiendsmith. The cards are very good, but the problem is just the way the meta is played right now is super, super unfavored for it. I'm going to put it here. The big problem with this deck is you play a bunch of hand traps, and you have a super large number of one card starters now. Like Kill Kill by itself plays for like 3 or 2 hand traps by itself. The big problem is there's a chummy problem. If you get forward, you have to draw yourself, or you just can't do anything. Like your end board is nowhere close enough to being able to give them that many draws. There's no half boards you can make. And people say, oh, you just use a new one to negate the Fua. There's a new Light Twin card where it says if your opponent activates a card or effect in response to a Light Twin monster effect, you can or card, discard it and then negate that effect. And so you may be able to steal games because you're going to go summon a Live Twin. Opponent goes Fua, you chain that, you now can combo without Fua. If you're playing against this deck, and as soon as this deck's out for a few weeks, all that's supposed to happen is you summon Live Twin, you summon a guy from the deck on res, you get Fua. The card in your hand doesn't do anything because you can't negate that anymore, and now you can't do anything. And so I think it is just kind of poorly positioned. I think if this was out about a month earlier, it would have been one of the best decks. Like I think it is super good into those kind of fair hand traps, but into the floodgate ones, it doesn't do well. And the other thing is this deck cannot crack half boards at all. You really do need hand trap them to near death to be able to do anything efficient. And that's not the format win. It's about strong engine. Next up, we'll do Cyber Dragons. I think we'll put this at the top of, and I will put this low. I don't really know what this deck is trying to do. Do you want to go second? Do you want to go first? I think the big problem is that you just don't have a good game plan into how the deck's supposed to do, and the power level of the game is so high right now that I'm not going to rate this super high. Dragon Rulers, I can put this in absolutely not. At least Cyber Dragon has like end boards and had a functioning deck before. The Dragon Ruler deck, all these cards are new. They're really cool, but unfortunately, I just don't know what you're supposed to be doing with them. It seems like you have low non-engine space, which is a problem because you need them. The pushes are very interactable, where all the cards are discard cards, special one from deck. If you get negated, it's problematic. Lancey's a problem. Chummies are a problem. Droll's a problem. It's weak to everything. The deck's neat, but I just don't see it doing anything. Eldritch, I'm going to put at the bottom of Decent Rogue. I do have a deck list for this I may upload. I don't think it's anything special, but it's a trap deck. If you win the die roll, it's pretty good. The other thing is this card. This is one of the few decks that can use all of the 3 Dominus cards because we do get the new Dominus card. So it can play these trap hand traps really well. I would have been better actually a few months ago because everyone's on thrusts or talents and crossout. But I will say, at least in the sense that it's a trap deck, it can grind. It functions. I don't think it's anything better than basically any other playable deck, though. The Argo Stars deck, this is a trap deck that came out in Suda. It got a few ways of support. We also got new support this set, as well as we're getting new support for the Nat set. The new support in Nat set is very good. This set's also good, but it's just not hitting the capacity it needs to actually be a functioning deck. I'm still going to put it in absolutely not still. I really like the play style of this deck, but it's just not there yet. It still needs more cards. The Ryu deck, for those of you who know, is the other archetype that came out with Razor Malice. The deck actually isn't unplayable by any means. It has a very good card in the form of the field spell, which is like a +4 by itself. And then you can play a bunch of other stunning cards. It's basically the modern version of a stun deck where you play the field spell, you get a big plus, you set some floodgate, and you win off that. And just because of that try being valid, like it's pretty immune to tech cards. because you're just stunning them to death. I'm going to put in the bottom decent rogue, probably above Eldritch. People don't like stun decks, but I will say that after playing on Master Duel, these decks do function. Like, you don't like them, they're not flashy. Yes, they have a horrible win rate going second, but you go to a tourney, you win a bunch of die rolls, you draw your set cards going second, and you can blow them out. I'm actually going to put above Cash too. I think this is more well positioned. Next up is the Regenesis deck. A lot of people, I think, were talking about this. It's another mid-range deck that's coming out. Basically, the gimmick is if you have a monster with 2,500 attack or defense on the board, you summon them. They're all big bodies. They all grind. But they send to the grave during your opponent's turn, they all come back to your hand. The problem with this deck is just bad. I'm going to put this in weak road because I don't think it's completely unplayable, but I really just don't like the playstyle of the deck. This deck, or this playstyle, is a deck that kind of screams my playstyle, and even then, I just think it's too weak. Like, it just doesn't do enough. We have so many better mid-range options, like when you look at Blue Eyes, Mitsu, Fire King, all these kind of decks in the middle here, Rizal. It's just what all these decks want to do worse. And I don't think it has any redeeming quality. I also think this deck struggles massively going second. So I'll say it's playable. It does have some tops in OSG, but I just really don't have high opinions of it. And last up is their Heraldic, Mitsu, or not Mitsu, Heraldic Rizal deck, which is basically just an XYZ deck, XYZ spam. I don't think the Heraldic cards are insane. They're fine. They're cool synergies with X where you can dump one of the heroic guys and search two, but I think that it doesn't really justify much other than playing it as some fun deck. We'll put it somewhere in the middle of Rogue. It does play Razor cards, so automatically gets a boost because of that. We'll put it above, probably above Voices, which I think is like just too low power level to justify being worse than that. If you want to play a deck, it is neat, but it's nothing special or outstanding. It's just kind of another rank 4 deck where you play Razor cards and you can win just off the power level of those. So overall, this is the tier list going into ALIN format. The big deck to beat is Malice, and you really do need to be prepared for them to just play through chummies, give you 4, 5, 6 draws, which is why you have all these decks up here with strong engines. You need to be able to push through those full boards when you have 10 cards, and I think that's kind of the big thing. We're moving away from the hand trap format we've been in the last few months and just playing a bit more of an engine format with those powerful lingering hand traps. So let me know if you guys like this type of videos, especially the format where I kind of skip some of these decks just to condense the video a little bit, so you're not sitting here and listening to me yap about the same things. Again, I want to bring out content that is, not just content for the sake of content, but actually content that is reasonable to watch and you're getting a better shape of the metagame. So again, let me know if you like this in the comment section below, and until next time.